because of COVID and locusts and the pandemic. And Kenya's production is way, way below demand. Agriculture is rain-fed, only 3%, yet the potential is over half a million hectares that could be put under irrigation and feed our nation. Also, there's very low mechanization, and that's why our industries are ailing. This is just a few elements which could be able to turn agriculture around. Commitment to the Malabo commitment, of expenditure or spending of 10%. Make sure that you invest in infrastructure to allow the private sector to be able to invest. Make sure that extension staff are trained. And also pay attention to us in terms of creating agro-processing and geoprocessing areas in our economic regions, and value chain development, as well as a strong network in the ASAL areas, and water harvesting technologies. Security is quite critical in those areas, and provide incentives for private sector investment. Job creation, I can't belabor on that too much because this is a very important issue, and those of you who are from the private sector know that the jobs are created by SMEs, and this is an area that requires a lot of attention. The issues challenges which face MSMEs are there: infrastructure, security, capital, lack of support by PPPs is difficult challenges of doing business, and processes of derailing the system. Of course, the legal system is not very supportive. One issue which is very clear is that the current system sort of has weaponized the state agencies such as KEBS and KERE, such that they are not playing a supportive role to the MSMEs. And his vision is to improve infrastructure across the country, lower taxes, especially for border, and also ease of doing business, especially setting up what is ease of doing business advisory council when he comes into power, to be able to kind of reform KEBS and KRA and police service so that they are more enablers than deterrent, and of course provide technical assistance and tackle corruption. The skilled manpower is a very important element, and we have made quite good progress, but because our skills are not matching the industry requirements, there is a need to improve in human capital, to be able to develop needed skills, and to be able to explore employment opportunities for the youth, and especially revamping TVET as a medium institutions that link practice to academia, and of course enhance research so that they come up with new innovations. Manufacturing is lagging behind, and his thinking is that we need to develop standards for manufactured products and waive taxes to increase adoption of manufacturers and smallholder medium enterprises. Establishment of National Credit Guarantee Scheme. This is very close to his heart, because his argument and our argument is that when HELP started, many people, the doubting Thomases, thought that the students from university could not pay those loans. Now it has been expanded into huge sums, and the students are paying, and it is doing very well. So it is very possible that a national guarantee scheme fund targeting manufacturers can play a very important role. The renovation and reform and capacity building of National Innovation Agency and also Industrial Property Institute to be able to facilitate innovation and, of course, reduce VAT. I'm just coming to the end. Just mention a few things about the sustainable use of resources. This is quite important, especially managing the 5 water towers is critical. Allocate resources to enhance mechanisms in mainstreaming of water and planning. Increase uptake of renewable and clean energy. And rationalize, also realize efficiency in the distribution of energy. And we see the monopoly of KPLC is not doing us much good. So the reforms need to be able to remove the monopoly and be able to bring competition that lowers the cost of electricity for manufacturers and other users. Undertake tax reforms that will be necessary to reduce the cost of accessing energy. Another issue, of course, is sustainable use of resources, and that is be able to implement land reform progressively, protect and conserve the forests through different measures, protect the wildlife, especially the interaction of wildlife and human beings, and strengthen the community ownership and involvement in land and natural resources. We will be issuing some of the sectoral analysis and recommendations later, but this, as I said, is a snapshot of some of these issues. The other issues which are quite critical is to do with transport. And the 4 pillars indicate improvement in air transport, road networks, railways and ports, and urban transport. And I'll just pick up the urban transport, which is very crucial to his agenda, that transport in Nairobi and other urban centers, people are wasting a lot of time traveling from one point to another. And Nairobi has like over 200 kilometers and serve Vitongoji. And if there were dedicated efforts to revamp the urban rapid transport, this could really release economic times and resources for improvement of our economy. One important, and the last slide, is strengthening domestic and foreign relations. I'll spend a bit on that because I think we have not done very well. One of the causes of Kenyan tottering economic is government failure to apply economic diplomacy to secure meaningful space in the international trade and especially e-commerce. The government lack the understanding of the importance of international trade to Kenya's overall economic performance. Look at the ports, airports, and just the port of Mombasa and the rest. There's a lot of inefficiencies, and the borders, our borders are also insecure. So under his leadership, he envisions restoring export competitiveness through partnerships with the private sector to lower the cost of manufacturing inputs, reinstate Kenya as export-led economy to be able to increase trade from GDP 11% to 22% by the year 2027, strengthen the trade supporting capacity of foreign offices, ministries, departments, agencies responsible for ensuring food safety, animal and plant health. One of the concerns here is that the foreign offices, we don't think, and he doesn't think, they have played a very important role in especially doing FDI, foreign direct investment. Under his leadership, he envisions making these offices more, creating opportunities for businesses to bring businesses in Kenya. So they are not just going there on visits or just, not being able to generate opportunities and bringing businesses to Kenya and also tourists to Kenya and creating employment for the youth. And of course, modernize the port and airports and make sure that they're efficient. This is my last slide. It just goes back again to the issues that we have been discussing. And one thing is about innovation, and as I said earlier, creativity and togetherness, and interconnectedness of all sectors and people. And the first thing to do is to use innovation to be able to look at production, capital, labor, land, and physical resources, and innovate to be able to create wealth, to be able to enhance efficiencies in institutions and agencies in the economic system, to re-engineer decision-making in the economic system to be able to reduce the cost of doing business, and to be able to enhance complementarity between the private and the public sector, and stimulating efficiency in the consumption so that we are not over-consuming, but consuming sufficiently. And above all, the issue of enhancing inter-county linkages through infrastructure development. If he does that and he visions to do that, he wants to prioritize tackling endemic corruption, ensure there is vibrant businesses so that they can create jobs and incomes for the Kenyans, make sure that the food is secure, nutrition is secure, and our health is secure, and that there is prudent public debt management. And those are his visions, and we believe, and he believes, in co-creation. And so all of you and all of us who are here, we need to join hands so that we can co-create and be able to revamp, recover, and grow our economy to tremendous rates. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Odame. It is not an easy agenda to synthesize in a few words. And for that reason, we did put out a call through various associations and asked experts who are willing to come and give us their view of this economic agenda. We did get responses, and we will be going to them very quickly. None of them will take more than 3 minutes to give responses to that presentation of the economic agenda. In the meantime, I want to remind you that we are strictly observing COVID regulations. So look at your neighbor and make sure that they are well tidied up. They are not breathing into your air. Please do that. For everything you touch, I think you have a bottle of sanitizer. Use it. I noticed that water was placed in front as if the others want to. Oh, I think where you are sitting, please look down. Next to you, there is a bottle of water. Am I correct? No? Please, the ushers, please do us a favor. When it is cold, there is tendency to be very thirsty also. So please do us a favor so that everybody has a bottle of water. Now, Dr. Dame did mention something about corruption. Our experts who replied to our call and agreed to come and do a quick analysis of this agenda will tell us. Honorable Mudavadi is very clear that the process of the Auditor General doing an audit 4 years later and then waiting for Parliament to take another 2 years to debate and discuss the auditor's report is tedious, is time-wasting, it is a gift to the corrupt public officers. So what is his suggestion? That through Parliament, he will sponsor legislation that will make it mandatory that the Auditor General's report is a final report that now gives way for criminal investigations and prosecution of public officials. To cut off the process of delays in audits and delays in Parliament, then we give the culprits time to enjoy public wealth for 7 years or so, and then when we try to charge them, evidence is not forthcoming at all. And I think that is an important thing for us to note, that will be a very big improvement in terms of tackling corruption, especially in the public sector. People steal money in public sector knowing they will not be caught up in their lifetime. And we must cut that umbilical cord there. Ladies and gentlemen, before I call the experts, we've been notified that there's been an incident where some students were shot and killed. They're being buried today. His Excellency the President has called for thorough accountability. May I just ask you to stand for all the others that are there for a minute of silence. Thank you very much. The first expert that I call will not take too much time, because at I think one we are going there will be the head of the team. Sorry, go back. Go back to Professor Otundo, please, if you can come this way and take your seat on my extreme right. Professor Otundo, please. Meanwhile, you can read his bio. It's quite extensive, though he looks very young. He's seen it all. Please take that seat on the extreme right. You can use here. The next one is Professor Benea Musoso. His bio is there. Take the seat immediately next to your fellow professor. The third one is the presenter of the summary, Dr. Hannington Odame. The fourth one is Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa. If you could please honor us and come up here. Oh, can we go back to that photo? You have used Kwame Owino's photo and not Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa. We apologize for that. Very, that is an accident of technology. We didn't mean to do that, although they are known to each other. but the photo is not Manyasa, but the bio is Manyasa. The last one is Henry Jage. Please, if you could come, we couldn't get your photo immediately. Please take this seat, the remaining seat there. What is going to happen is that these experts, whom we publicly sought and they responded, have listened to the presentation, have had an opportunity to go through the economic agenda itself, the original of the presentation. We will give them 3 minutes each to quickly, except Dr. Odame, you will wait for the Q&A, to quickly highlight areas that they think are important in this economic agenda. In other words, what are the takeaways that you should be able to pay specific attention to? After they do that, we will open the session to a Q&A, and I would plead that we allow the media, because they were invited here specifically for them to do the Q&A. So we will give preference to media, but that does not exclude anybody else who wants to raise a question in that session. Once we are through with that quick Q&A, we will invite Honorable Musalia Mudavadi to come and give his remarks. And after that, we will call it a day. Please do not rush to go. We have lunch, sumptuous as that, prepared for you, because we are honoring you for honoring us. Let me start with Dr. Manyasa. What strikes you as an outstanding novel proposition that Honorable Musalia Mudavadi is making in his economic agenda for Kenya?
Thank you. Your Excellency Musalia Mudavadi, all protocols observed. I'd like to mention 3 things very quickly that I think are important. One, I am glad that we are talking about economic revival and recovery, because we have fallen. How have we fallen? Look from 10 years ago and count the companies that have gone under in Kenya. And that will tell you why we actually need economic recovery and need it now. And that is very good that it is highlighted here. The second thing that I want to say is very important that is mentioned here is unemployment. Youth unemployment in Kenya is a crisis. Recently, TSC advertised 5,000 positions of teachers, and 350,000 qualified teachers applied. Yeah? That is how critical unemployment, especially among the youth in Kenya, is, and I'm happy that that is also being focused on here. The third thing that I want to mention is the fact that we are looking at an economy that works for all. Why? Because we are coming from the COVID-19 pandemic. It is an economic shock. What economic shocks do is to really shock people. And what they do, therefore, is to push everyone who was near the poverty line below the poverty line, and everyone who was below the poverty line further below the poverty. So it's important that we are going to be focusing on deliberately getting this economy to work for the people who have fallen below the poverty line, some because of the economic policies that we've had for quite a number of years that were not good, and some because of this pandemic that we are currently struggling with. I cannot forget to mention the issue of corruption. What does corruption do? It kills initiative. You come up with your own idea, someone else hijacks and benefits from it, so you don't initiate anything anymore. It scares away investors who would have created jobs and created revenues for the country. It makes us borrow commercial loans to avoid borrowing from the concession lenders, to avoid the stringent accountability requirements from those lenders. And I think that corruption is one of the worst calamities that we face in this country. Manpower development policy is something that I want to see developed. Our institutions train young Kenyans for nothing, without a plan. School music was considered one of the key subjects to study music in the university. They were now misfits in the labor market because many of them had trained as double music teachers, and the government had stopped music as an examinable subject. We don't have a manpower development policy, and it is contributing significantly to the massive youth unemployment that we have. I want to stop here and move on to the next of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a clap, Dr. Manyasa, there with very clear observations. My question would be, how well is that covered in this economic agenda? Just a quick one, Dr. Manyasa.
It is well covered. I have had the opportunity to look through the document, and it is well covered, and I'm happy that this is covered.
Thank you very much. One issue that came up in the presentation is that of unemployment. The COVID exacerbated unemployment. Professor Muzoso, how is your take on how the economic agenda of Honorable Musalia Mudavadi has attempted to deal with the issue of unemployment?
Good morning, everybody. It's afternoon. Thank you. Bana Moderator, I would like at this point first to focus on the key issues of the manifesto, the economic agenda in particular, that I very well interacted with, and this is in the area of wealth creation, and more specifically, I would like to talk about the sector of pastoralism and how pastoralism is integrated in the economy. First, I would want to say that having read the document, I was happy that for the first time, pastoralism is recognized as an important sector of the Kenyan economy. From 1965, at the time of the sessional paper number 10, which emphasized government investment in areas of high potential, that is meaning the agricultural areas. About 13 counties, of course then districts, it was meant that they were neglected. These 13 counties occupied by pastoralists. And of course, it's important to note that I would say for the first time that I've read many documents, but for the first time, the issue of pastoralism in this manifesto is brought to the fore, is brought to the front. Now, probably just again to say when we talk of pastoralists and pastoralism, who are they? These are the livestock keepers, subsistence livestock keepers, who occupy about 14 counties in Kenya. And I was happy to note that the manifesto went even further to identify, to mention these counties, starting from Narok, Kajiado, Tana River, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera, Isiolo, Marsabit, Turkana, Samburu, West Pokot, and Baringo. Which means, in my view, is that the manifesto is really up to date in recognizing this category of livestock keepers and further where they live. And of course, as we know, most of us, whenever we hear of pastoralists, even in the media, we normally read about the negative aspects only. They are warlike, they have a martial tradition, we hear about conflict, about fighting, about drought, the negative aspects. Little have we been able to see the potential that these areas have. And I'm happy that the economic agenda was able to flag out the potential of these areas. These areas have a lot of potential in terms of livestock. They have a lot of potential in terms of agricultural production. Why? Because these areas have, these resources have not been fully exploited. There has been very little investment in these areas in terms of, for example, the road infrastructure. And when I looked through this section of the economic agenda, I was happy to note that there's even mention of particular infrastructure projects. The particular road, for example, I was happy to note Garissa, Liboi. I was happy to note the mention of Wajir, Moyale. I was happy to note mention of Lodwar to Uganda, Lodwar to southern Ethiopia, which I think I find that the economic agenda is actually alive to the challenges of pastoralism, and it recognizes that indeed pastoralism has a great contribution to make to this economy. There's no justification why, for example, other countries, and let me to be specific, for example, Somalia. Somalia is able to export a lot of horticulture. It's able to export live animals. And a good proportion of the meat we eat here in Nairobi and other towns comes from Somalia. Which means, even for us, in these counties, it is possible. This potential is there. We just need to invest in these areas to realize this potential for economic growth. Maybe the other point I also noticed.
You have 1 minute.
Okay, it's about agriculture. It's about agriculture, and specifically, I was happy to note that the manifesto is putting the Kenyan farmer first. I think previously, and as we speak even currently, the Kenyan farmer is a forgotten farmer. Why? Because he produces, but is unable to sell. What he produces is what is imported. And more specifically, I think, which is also very good about this aspect of the manifesto, or the economic agenda, is that it's talking about revival of collapsed industries, rural industries in particular. When we talk of collapsed rural industries, or those that are doing badly, for example, in Western Kenya, the sugarcane factories, the Mumias, which was more or less a mammoth, is down. We are talking about coffee factories. We are talking about cashew nut factories, and of course, revival of these factories. The manifesto also clearly talks about food production, food self-sufficiency. There's no reason, justification why in this country some Kenyans should die of hunger because there's no food. There's plenty of food, and there's potential for even to produce more. So I think that those are some of the key aspects, good aspects, I was able to glean out of the economic agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some clap for Professor Msoso there. I know I ambushed you and I asked you the issue of unemployment. I wanted to pluck that one from you. It is very good. He has mentioned the issue of food. I don't know how many of us know that we no longer consume Kenyan products in agriculture. We are actually consuming from our neighbors. And we export almost nil to our neighbors. There was a time when I was very old in the past. If you went to Tanzania, you will find something called made in Kenya. Everything, butter, everything, whatever. If you went to Uganda, the same thing, the East African region. Today, you can't find a product on the shelves in those countries labeled made in Kenya. To the extent that today you are eating eggs from Uganda. You are buying milk from Uganda. You are buying, is it maize? The flour you consume is from where? Most, Tanzania. Tanzania has overtaken Uganda. I think the Ugandan season is not whatever. So you ask yourself, what is it that we are not doing right here in Kenya that we have become consumers of other countries' products, cereals, especially in the area of cereals. Yet we have the potentials and we want to develop. Mr. Njage, what has struck you and excited you in this presentation on the economic agenda?
Thank you very much, Professor. Your Excellency Musalia, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I think there's a particular soundbite that I really like, pesa mfukoni. Your Excellency, I think it's a soundbite, and it's miles ahead of the other soundbite we keep hearing that made 30% of Kiambaa voters vote in the wrong direction. But they have had their way, and next time the 60% will have their say. Now, going on to the question that Professor KK has just pointed out. In critiquing the manifesto, there are two critical things that we had to bear in mind. One of them was to benchmark it against its actuarial practicality. Because we have to look at morbidity rates. We have to look at what's the real story on the ground. Is the manifesto a practical document, or is it a simple wish list? That was one thing we looked at. The other thing we looked at was its application. Can it be practically applied on the ground? And I'm pleased to say that based on the benchmarks we had, the scorecard came out very well, and it scored well above 85%. So on those two fronts, I can say that we were very happy with that. Now, moving on to the ever-elusive universal health coverage. Every country in the world aspires to get a universal cover. Even currently, I know the current government is trying to do that, but it's been forever elusive. Now, on studying the manifesto, I saw that not only practical measures have been taken to address that issues, because there are clear guidelines on the growth towards, for example, having adequate ICU beds in every county and boiling down to every constituency. This pandemic has exposed our underbelly, and we've seen that actually, we are miles behind on some issues. The other thing that I noticed is that in terms of job creation, there will be opportunity to create jobs in terms of recruiting those who are not already covered. The specific vehicle of choice for universal healthcare, in my opinion, the ideal vehicle of choice in Kenya is the NHIF. But how many Kenyans are covered by NHIF? I think the current number stands at about 8 million. So what does that tell us about the remaining 40? Where are they? They are actually looking after themselves and paying as they go. And we've seen that if there's something that sucks out the wealth of a nation, it is trying to provide adequate health services to our people. Fortunately, in Kenya, we are our brother's keeper. We've all been involved in fundraising for medical bills. And if you looked at it from a macro perspective, those are billions and billions of shillings that should actually have gone towards production, towards investments, towards creation of SMEs. But instead, where is it going? It's going towards looking after our elders and looking after our neighbors. But I've seen the manifesto has covered that very well. And further to that, again touching on job creation, there's a very big opportunity, a golden opportunity in attempting to bring the remaining 40 million Kenyans on board of the universal health care cover. And we know that based on economies of scale, the more the members who join, the cheaper and more affordable the cover will become. And I noticed that there's a very clear indicator that that's the direction that the manifesto will head, and that's the direction that the party leader wants to take when he does take power, which is what we aspire. And having said that, if in terms of job creation, you can imagine if, for example, the particular institution approached Mheshimiwa Malala and asked him, please give me 200 youths from your area to assist in recruiting other members. We will train them, we will give them the right product knowledge, and they will earn a commission from that very job that they are doing. I'm sure that will create a lot of excitement on the ground, and it creates a win-win situation. Not only are some youths gainfully, under gainful employment, but there'll be more Kenyans being brought onto the cover. We could discuss much more, but for the sake of time, allow me to stop right there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, you could be wondering, well, why is this guy discussing health and we are discussing the economic agenda? The truth of the matter is that you can't discuss the economy without discussing health. A healthy nation is what? Nation. In Kenya, if we didn't know, the issues is touching on that almost all households' incomes, more than a half of household incomes money is spent on health. That denies investment. You cannot invest if all your income, or half of it or three-quarters of it, is being spent in terms of health. And unhealthy people are not productive people. If you build a road through an area where everybody is unhealthy, they will use the road not to do business, but use the road to go and seek medical treatment. Time wasted, resources wasted. Young people today cannot invest because the dependency rate, all those relatives who are looking forward to your M-Pesa, deplete your ability to have some money to invest. And when they do that, and if you go to find what they do with your M-Pesa money, you will find that most of that money goes towards drugs. Why? Because our health centers, despite all the pomposity about it, are structures without equipment and without medicine. You will be given a rough piece of paper to go and buy medicine outside the facility. And a lot of our money goes there. So that is partly why Njagi is putting health as an economic factor that needs to be considered. You will do everything else, but if you don't tackle the question of health and the amount spent on it, you will not revive the economy, you will not stabilize the economy, and therefore there will be no economic growth. Finally, Dr. Odame, what is your take? Because I have seen and read under the sector of agriculture in the economic agenda that you want to revamp, Mheshimiwa Mudavadi wants to revamp agriculture in such a manner that we will have cottage industry as a way of value addition. How viable is that, and to what extent will that help us in job creation or in dealing with unemployment? Just that, the issue of agriculture.
Thank you very much, Moderator, Your Excellency, Musalia Mudavadi, and all guests, or protocol observed. Agriculture, as we know it, is an important component of Kenya's economy. The recent statistics indicate that agriculture contributed about 34% of GDP in 2019. Due to COVID, it must have gone down a little bit, but it remains very, very important. And the other issue is that we do primary agriculture, that is production. The focus has tended to be on production and not value addition, processing, marketing. And setting up of agroecological processing or agricultural processing zones in the counties or economic blocks all the way down to the counties and also to the wards, I think it is a very wise idea that Mheshimiwa Musalia envisions. Because, first of all, we realize that the young people, their attitude towards primary agriculture is not so positive. But young people are very attracted to higher value chains, and especially when we focus on processing, value addition, and marketing, and especially when we bring agro-innovation that is tapping onto the digital platforms. So I strongly believe that these processing zones opened at the county level would be a game changer because they will link agriculture to industry, to trade, and ICT. And this is a big attraction for the young people. The other issue which becomes very critical, and Professor Mtsoso alluded to it, is the whole idea of interconnectivity, which I also mentioned. It is very possible that if we were to link counties and also regions, it is possible that we can have a game changer in these linkages so that we link agriculture, primary production, to processing, to marketing. And that will attract financing, what we call integrated value chain financing, which then allows the players in that sector, like wholesalers and retailers, to work with the youth and create jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Makofi kwake tafadhali. Thank you very much for that, because it is an important proposition in the agenda that Kenya should not be selling raw materials, especially in the agriculture sector, and they should move towards cottage industry. And we will not be reinventing the wheel. China, what we are now consuming from China, began as a cottage industry. And it remains cottage industry in China. Industry in China is not centralized at all. I want to apologize for an all-male panel. I knew it. The reason is that for those who wale waliitikia mwito wetu kwamba they can come, we had actually two ladies. And unfortunately, each one of them this morning called in to excuse themselves for various reasons that they couldn't make it to the session. So we did try, but next time we will make sure that those incidences that will prevent them from coming, and we know what kind of instances would actually prevent ladies from going to a session like this one, because of the nature of our family setup. So we apologize for that. At 1, I would like the host, Honorable Mudavadi, to come and give some remarks. But before he does that, I want to thank the panel. You remain there because there will be a Q&A. Before we reach there, may I call upon that gentleman? Yes. Anthony, is it? Yes, please, Anthony, come. I didn't get your bio, but I had a conversation with you when you came, and you did make me look very stupid in terms of how I use my water. I would like you to relate that incident, that's anecdote you just told me on how stupid I was in terms of how I use water. Just quickly, in less than 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Prof. I'm not sure if I can remember what I told you, but I want to appreciate and recognize His Excellency, Honorable Mudavadi, all protocols observed. I'm from the water sector within the Republic, and what excites me is that this manifesto focuses, allow me to remove my mask, focuses on Huduma Bora, that is provision of water and sanitation services. Paradoxically, the most abundant substance on planet Earth is water. But as we speak as a nation now, our access to potable water is at 57%. That means 43% of the entire populace of 47.6 million do not have access to safe and clean water as contemplated by Article 43 of our Constitution 2010. So that is the huge challenge that we have. Experts tell us that Kenya is a water-scarce country. We don't have enough fresh water. But recent research has shown that in the atmosphere, the amount of water that exists in the atmosphere is more than all the rivers combined in the planet. If you talk about the Amazon River, River Mississippi, the Nile, all that volume of water is not enough compared to the water in the atmosphere. And I'm happy that this manifesto has captured that in terms of technologies. Israelites are now extracting water from their atmosphere. Why don't we clap for that? So it means we don't need to go anywhere. look at how humid our atmosphere is now. But where these services are lacking, who are disenfranchised? It is women and the youth. They spend more hours in search of water. It could take 4 to 5 hours. And as they do that, they are exposed to many risks, including gender-based violence. So I think this one needs to be reversed. I remember in my age, when we were seducing girls, I know everybody goes there, because I come from Budalangi. Have a very big river, River Nzoia. We have Lake Victoria. So because there are no phones to call SMS, if you're interested in a girl, you wait for her when she's going to fetch water, and you take hold of the jerrycan. What will she do? She will follow you, crying. She can't go back home without a jerrycan of water. Isn't that gender-based violence? It is still happening up to now. So I think what is more important in this manifesto is that it is focusing on Huduma Bora to ensure we have access to safe, clean water and safely managed sanitation within the Agenda 2030 framework. And let me tell you, if you relate it economically, and why it is important we are talking of potable water, pipe to water, it remains the cheapest way of availing water to the society. Ordinarily here in Nairobi, a jerrycan of water goes for how much? Around 20 shillings. Did you know that the cost of piped water for people living in Lavington, a 20-liter jerrycan delivered through a pipe, is 70 cents by Nairobi Water? That's how cheap it is. So it tells you that somebody that doesn't have access to water pays how many times? 20 times more expensive. So I think economically, if that is done and the ANC government is able to give piped water to all Kenyans, so it means your 19 shillings and 30 cents will be put in your pocket. Pesa mfukoni, bwana Njagi. You can see how it is turning the tides. Let me come to sanitation. When you drink water or you use water, 70% is wasted. Wamama mkiosha manguo, maji mnapeleka wapi? Kisha kamua. When you are washing utensils, you are washing against a running tap. Or when this morning you are brushing and you are on phone against a running tap, do you know how much quantity of water used? You used 50 liters to brush your teeth. That is how wasteful we are as a nation. Is it true or false? But if you take a glass of water, you'll use less than 200 ml. So what I'm saying is that when it comes to wastewater, is that as you use water, it turns into wastewater. And statistics show us that we waste 27 billion every year because we don't take care of our wastewater. A simple example, as a professor put it on national TV, that we rudimentarily drink our shit. When you go, because as you eat, there is some matter which will leave the body if it is not needed. It's known as fecal matter or shit. Let me use that word. So do we care at the point of containment where the shit goes? You can care it is the toilet. But after the toilet, do you know where it is conveyed to? Do you know how it is treated? Do you know how it is disposed? Do you know how it is reused? So one challenge we have as a nation, we don't take care of our fecal matter. And statistics or research shows that a healthy person like me and you produce 1.5 kilogram of fecal matter in a day. So what we are doing in Nakuru, because I'm in the water sector, we are taking all those feces and converting it to become biofuel, and we are having briquettes. So that means we are taking care of the environment, we are no longer cutting trees. So, and this is the challenge in terms of biofuel. So we are going to use that wastewater to ensure that we have value addition and we have reuse and recycling. Then that will also lower the disease burden that Njage talked, of course, lack of access to safe and clean water contributes to 75% of the disease burden that is in this country. So if the ANC government through Honorable Musalia Mudavadi is able to give safe water and safely manage sanitation, then the disease burden will reduce drastically. So more money will not go into healthcare, but more money will be available for investment as put. I have a lot of facts about water, but let me stop there. Thank you very much.
Please, let's give him a clap. I think water as an economic factor. I think that is very clearly illustrated. What Anthony had told me, which made me feel stupid, and he didn't want to say, was that he asked me, when it rains and you are standing outside your door, do you ever wonder where that water that is passing between your feet is headed to? And I said, well, it will go to the rivers down there. He said, yeah, it will go to the rivers. But some of it will pass through what he said. Did you say that waste is? Yeah, and carry that matter with it. Then your family will follow it to go and to fetch the same water. And then tomorrow morning, everybody has malaria, everybody has whatever. But we saw the water. We did not want to catch that water, to use it. We let it pass, and then it is the water that is water. In some of the areas in this country, there are undulating hills, and people have built drop toilets. Have you ever wondered? And then they go downstream from the hills to fetch water from those wells. Does it ever occur to you that we are actually feeding on yourself? Because, sorry, we don't want to end with that kind of whatever, but we are just trying to say that water is a very important economic factor that we need to take care of, and it is taken very well, is very well articulated under the economic factor, so that we can build this country. With water, we can kill a lot of things, unhealthy people, etc. Can I take this opportunity, therefore? We had planned that this session from now, will be a Q&A. But we realize that it is better when the host speaks for himself, so that when you do a Q&A, you can also have an opportunity to ask him. Because if he speaks after the Q&A, you will not have an opportunity to ask him the question that you have wanted to direct directly to him. So we want to, sijui tumkaribishe namna gani. Madam Rahab Mikali, moja, mbili, tatu,
It's okay. You don't have to go away. Yeah, you're still okay. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, let me just take this opportunity to thank you for sparing your time. At least we've taken half of your day for you to be with us, listen to us, and we are really going to value the issues that you may highlight, so that by the time we are doing the launch of the manifesto, we could also benefit from the points that you'll have identified as requiring further review or clarity.
The second thing that I just want to point out is that we are not going through a purely academic exercise when we talk about solving problems in our country. And you will notice that as the people who have been helping me and helping in putting the thoughts together, because nobody has a monopoly of ideas, you have to work with others, you have to consult. There's always somebody who has a better idea than you somewhere along the line. So consultation is absolutely important. And these are not the only people who are helping us. There have been others, and they've also been seeking with their research teams to build up what we have been discussing and then trying to bring it down into something that would be tangible. So we want practical approaches to the challenges that are facing Kenya. We want to be able to also answer the question of how. That must be a thread that runs through everything we do. If we say we are going to create jobs, eventually we must answer the question, how? That is what Kenyans will be looking for, how? We must have a thread of accountability running through whatever issues that we are talking about. We must have integration of the various sectors that come up. So, although we have pointed out that we have about 4 agenda items, which they have talked about, they are all intertwined. The economic issue, the governance issue, the transformational issues, the issues around the environment and climate change that is taking place in the country, in the globe, these are all intertwined. So I want us to debunk this notion that it is about economic models. We have been killing page after page in our media, several hours on our TV screens and so forth, because we are beginning to argue about models and models and models, making it look like it is a simple academic exercise. The challenges facing Kenya is not about models. Let us diagnose what is there. If we have a diagnosed health as an issue or some challenges in health, let us be surgical. Find out what those are, and then think through the process of getting out of those challenges properly. If we are talking about debt, and as an example, I kept on talking about debt much earlier, to the extent that people maybe started saying, is this Mr. Debt? Whenever I appeared. It looked as if it was just a simplistic thing, but now we acknowledge it is, because 70% of the revenue collected is going to pay debt. 70% of what KRA collects is going to pay debt. So what is left for development? Now, if 70% is going to debt, then slowly we enter into a debt trap, because the 30% that we have cannot meet our other needs, meet our other expenditures, pay salaries and so forth. So again, you go out to seek more debt. Now, public debt will then translate into excessive household debt. Because there is household debt. How does household debt grow? Household debt will grow because you are being taxed more by the government of the day to settle external debt. So ile pesa mfukoni, which you're supposed to have, is diminishing. And your household debt is growing. Your poverty levels are growing. So these are the issues that we need to arrest. And we can only arrest them from a holistic approach. We must rationalize public expenditure. We can't do everything at the same time, at a go. We will have to make very tough decisions going forward. Some austerity measures will have to come into place. These are the issues that must come out. And I have been propagating the issue of the economy, and when I pushed it, the truth of the matter is that the competitors in the field have all jumped onto it. Sometimes it's important, if people don't give you the credit, sometimes you must blow your own trumpet, because nobody will blow it for you. Because the reality of the matter here is that we started talking about economic issues earlier than any of the political competitors today. Now, when we say uchumi bora, pesa mfukoni, now somebody comes up with a hashtag and says uchumi mashinani. When you talk of something else, you can see an element of plagiarism beginning to play into this discussion. So let us be very careful. Let us not dwell on what are perceived as economic models. Let us create stability. Let us get people to vote wisely. And then let the institutions that are supposed to function appropriately. I am sitting here with several members of parliament. We want to tackle corruption as a nation. But if you allocate to the Auditor General 3 billion shillings, you then allocate to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption 3 billion shillings. You allocate to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution 3 billion shillings. You allocate to the Asset Recovery and Money Laundering entities 1 billion shillings. You then allocate 18 billion shillings to the judiciary. You then allocate about 6 billion to DCI. And then you allocate 47 billion to Parliament. Then you tell them, let us fight corruption. How is the Auditor General going to provide timely and accurate reports, not only of the national government, but for the 47 counties that we have? And over and above that, the parastatals. So, what am I saying here? Can we rationalize our expenditure programs, our resource allocation arrangements as a nation? That does not require a model. That requires us being practical and putting resources where we shall have the appropriate return, either in the delivery of justice or the provision of service, or provide better facilities in one way or the other. We must ask ourselves, COVID or no COVID, why have we lost 2 million subscribers or contributors to NHIF in the last 1 year? Why is it a situation where the person who's contributing to NHIF can no longer afford to pay what he or she was supposed to pay so that she can get medical attention? These are the questions we should be asking ourselves as a nation. That is what I'm appealing to you as Kenyans that let us focus. Let us break away from this personality-based politics. I remind people of two great politicians in this country. One was Dr. Zachary Onyonka, may his soul rest in peace. And another was a Nairobi politician, a friend of mine called David Mwenje. Very interesting. When you go to the Hansard in Parliament, you will see what Zachary Onyonka would talk about in terms of what we ought to do as a nation to revamp our economy, to create jobs. When you went to the Hansard, very huge contributions. When it came to him being covered by members of the Fourth Estate who are here, he would barely get a paragraph. Then David Mwenje, who would come in and enter with a tiff with the speaker, would get the headline, but what Zachary Onyonka had said vanishes. So I'm bringing this together so that at the end of the day, I want to appeal to a very important player in directing the economic recovery and revival of this nation to put their best foot forward, and that is the Fourth Estate, the media. I want you to put your best foot forward in getting the right discourse in this country so that we can make informed decisions, so that we can vote right. Let us get things right. Ask us the how question. How do I intend to finance these programs? Is it realistic? Do you want to increase the tax burden on Mama Mboga? Do you want to increase the tax burden on the small businessman? What is making people angry? Globally, sharing of a container. Is it the less than, they call it LSM, I think there's some importers here, where our people in Gikomba would be able to share a container in terms of what they bring. Just repeat that? CVM. Now, why would you then create a policy that denies that small person the opportunity to pool together? Kenya had a very strong cooperative movement. What is the cooperative movement all about? It's all about pooling together. So you make business difficult for them. Now, do you expect them to want to vote for you? These are some of the fundamentals that I say we don't require models. We require dialogue, listening to the people who are doing business, talking to them, understanding their challenges, and finding collective solutions. This is the message that we need to drive home. I was in Treasury for some time. I know a government desires to look for quick collection of revenue, and the target is usually where it pinches most. Energy sector, petroleum products. That is where we go for maybe 50% or even 70% of your costs, energy costs, and nothing but taxes. How are you going to become competitive? If you have big manufacturers here when you profile the cost of a unit of a kilowatt hour of electricity, it's very expensive in Kenya. Why? How are we going to compete? All the power purchase agreements that the Kenya Power entered into that have made power costly, I'm happy at least there's a review going through it. But these are issues that we can correct by making sure that we open renegotiation in some of those areas. Until you make the cost of power affordable, you are going to render all our manufacturers uncompetitive. About 40% of production costs in manufacturing is the cost of energy. We have to address these things. This is not about models. This is about being realistic, practical, diagonalize, and find solutions. So we are offering you, as ANC, a team, a desire, a conviction that we will be ready to dialogue with Kenyans, all sectors, small or big, farmer or non-farmer, pastoralist or non-pastoralist, male and female, young and old, so that we can find appropriate solutions and we can put enough resources in all our areas that require attention. Education, the health sector, the manufacturing. We must leverage on technology. The digital space is becoming big, very big, maybe close to, in a very short while, to be hitting the $5 trillion billion-dollar industry or beyond. So these are areas, if we leverage, we will provide opportunities, we will create the jobs that our people want. Then we can have a broad economy and we will lower taxes. It is not about additional tax. Can we bring into the fold new taxpayers? More young and energetic people getting jobs, bring them into the tax bracket, and in the process we can now have a threshold that will lower taxes, not introduce additional taxes. KRA has been driving us out of town. It is driving Mama Mboga out of business. It is driving the transport sector into a lot of hide and seek games. Even auctioneers are being auctioned. That's the reality. You ask me how, I'll tell you how. The auctioneer has auctioned everybody. All the goods are in warehouses. There's nobody to buy those goods at auctions. The auctioneer now is being told to pay rent because you have warehoused. The auctioneer cannot pay rent because there are no buyers of the goods. And therefore the auctioneer is now under auction. So, these to me are the challenges that we face. And those are the sentiments that are out there. And don't be cheated. Don't be cheated. As much as our society is what it is, there's a very educated generation out there. a new generation that is educated. And if we approach things the traditional way, it's not going to work. Chebukati told us that since 2017 he has registered only about 140,000 new registered voters, but the Registrar of Persons has issued an additional 5 million identity cards. And if he goes through the mass registration process that they will be doing, it will mean that somewhere along the line, there will be an additional 5 million voters. Out there. And let me tell you, as much as my profile is good, as much as I fought and liberalized the economy, let me tell you, those 5 million voters that are going to come into the voters register are not going to be interested in that. To them, they'll be interested in Pesa Fukoni. That is what they'll be looking for. They'll be looking at people who will create jobs and be able to have, give them sufficient disposable income. That is what they're going to be looking for. So we as a nation must prepare ourselves for that. That is what is going to change things. That is what is going to create stability. But I'm telling you, if you tell them that I fought for independence, they will not remember. They'll tell you if you were there at that time, you would have done exactly the same thing. So this is the reality that we are living into. So let's just, as I conclude, let me just say, let us help Kenyans focus on the right issues. The fourth estate, you are a critical player. Extremely critical. Don't let Kenyans down. Be inquisitive. Ask us the right questions. Don't just go with a script. This is the time to help Kenya make the right decisions. Our foreign policy and what have you, it must be directed. One of the presenters talked about it. We must move away from the traditional way of saying this is our commercial attaché. How can you redirect that person so that he can be used to attract direct investment into Kenya and at the same time create proper markets and open up new markets for the Kenyans where he is based? And targets may have to be set for those embassies so that we can see there is some performance. Are we getting value for money? These are the issues. We talked about education a few days ago. The double intake that is looming as we transition from the competency, from the 844 to the competency-based system. The double intake that will climax in 2023 and 2024 is a very serious matter. And it touches the family. And if we don't have enough resources at that time to put on the table to allow our children to get the quality education that is desired, you will have created an environment that can lead to civil unrest. So we must start preparing, reorganizing ourselves so that resources can be allocated and facilities can be put out there. The Ministry of Education just released 4.2 billion shillings for infrastructure. If a classroom is worth 1 million or 1.2 million, then you're saying that they'll only be able to expand to about 3,000 additional classes. But how many million children are out there? That must be. This thing will need to be financed. And it's not about models. It's about making pragmatic and realistic decisions and rationalizing our expenditure as a nation so that we get the maximum output out of the resources that we have. We will have to move away rapidly from expensive loans. Go for concessional funding. We will have to be more innovative. Go for public-private partnerships. Create the right environment for the private sector to grow. Let's not make regulation obstruction. Regulation must be supportive. It must not be obstructionist. These are critical issues and we can do it. Let's get these things right. And I'm offering you my services so that we can get these things right. Kwa hivyo, tushikane mikono. Whether it is in sports and what have you, let's make all these income generating centers for our people, for our young. I conclude by reminding people I'm a fan of Manchester United. I don't know how I found myself there, but I think I was encouraged by my family members who are also fans there. But when it comes to slogans, nobody beats the Liverpool slogan. What does it say? You shall never walk alone. Never walk alone. I'm telling Kenyans that this country needs us to walk together. We should not allow anybody to walk alone. If you want to make recovery, if you want to go forward more consolidated, let us walk together, hand in hand, finding common solutions to our challenges. It can be done. So I conclude by thanking all of you and the teams that have worked towards this build-up. A lot of it will be shared by the media, I think, on soft copy, as it is now. And we would be happy to receive your feedback so that by the time you are getting to the actual launch of the manifesto, your feedback will be most valued as we conclude this process. But right now, you know me, and you know what I stand for. And I'll continue speaking to some of these issues, time and again, on the economic matters and other issues. But we must maintain a unity of purpose. We must be honest. We must communicate the truth and nothing but the truth. Let us move away from rumor mongering. Let us move away from, even if I'm not your favorite candidate, come 2022, but I hope I will be. But even if I'm not your favorite candidate, let us not engage in falsehoods against others. Let us not do that. Let us speak things as they are. I know propaganda is a political tool, but you must also be intelligent in the way you bring out the propaganda. Sometimes you can bring out propaganda until everybody says it's no longer propaganda, but those are the rantings of a sycophant. Because it ceases to make any sense. So as we go ahead, let us move ahead. We value criticism and all that, but let us move ahead. Kenya ni yetu, na tuijenge pamoja. Uchumi bora na pesa mfukoni. Uchumi bora na pesa mfukoni. Thank you for all who have come here. We'll continue interacting. The business people who are here, the various sectoral people who are here, thank you for listening to us. I don't want to pretend that I talked generally. Maybe there'll now be specific questions directed at a specific person or sector. Then we can respond to that. But let us all help Kenyans to make decisions on policy-related matters. That way we shall get people in the right positions. That is what will matter. Asante sana. God bless you all. Thank you.
Another round of claps for him. Relation, please. Thank you very much. Now, we have heard from the host. I'm trying to imagine whether you are imagining that this guy went through a rehearsal before he came to speak here, or he was speaking from his own knowledge. Which is which? The latter. He was speaking from his own knowledge. And that is the president I think you deserve. Not somebody who has been rehearsed for a television show, but somebody who has the facts and the information with him. Our experts for the media are available as sources for you. I think we put up their contacts, etc. So if you want to get a comment and whatever, now and in the future, they will be available. And we are going to, together with their bios, we will send you the presentation. I'm hoping that when you registered a clear email address, so that I'm talking to people from the media. We will send you that presentation before the end of the day. We have members of parliament. Before we go to a quick Q&A, we have members of parliament here whom we did not introduce, although we acknowledge them. I would like to give them an opportunity each just to say their name and their constituency and most probably what they didn't like about the presentation or what they liked. But before then, I would like to recognize the chair of, the national chair of Maendeleo ya Wanawake, Madam Rahab Mwikali. Please come and say something. I'm hoping she can say it from there. I want her here. I am trying to make myself likable on the issue of gender, so.
Your Excellency, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, oral protocol observed. My name is Elizabeth Mayeka. I'm the National Secretary. I'm representing the National Chair of Maendeleo ya Wanawake. Because of time, I have some notes that we had made as an organization, which I will forward. But, sir, Your Excellency, we are honored to be invited. You know very well about Maendeleo. We are the largest women organization. We're going to be 70 years next year, on the election year. So we have been around. You know, your mom, he was also a member and is still a member. You have two mothers, so the late was and the one who is still surviving. We have our structures which go up to the ward, up to the village. And as you said, and as you have talked a lot, our documents actually concur with what your vision, with what you want to do. And as women who, our members are the members who sell tomatoes in the village. We have elected officials from the ward up to the national office, and we know the challenges you've talked about, the economy. We now want the women to have money in their pocket so that the families can be able to improve. COVID has not made things any easier. There are a lot of challenges. And from our document here, Your Excellency, you will see what we've said. We have a water harvesting project, which we are doing. The gentleman who talked about water, we concurred with you. Water is wasted. When it rains, the water goes down. When the drought comes, there is no water. So we have had a partnership with Equity Bank and Mson Microfinance. We've launched the water harvesting project. We've already got, the women have got tanks in Kajiado, in Nyamira, in Kisii, and we've trained, if you don't mind, sir, maybe I can give you the figures. We have been able to train with Equity Bank. Sorry about that. I just want to comment that because I'm going to leave the document. We've been able to train 2,100 individuals to be able to access the training and get tanks. We also, in the training, are training on entrepreneurship, which means besides having the water tanks, they should be able to know how to do small businesses. And then we are also encouraging smart agriculture so that with COVID now, we encourage the women to have food, to be able to have food for their children and all that. So, Your Excellency, we support your economic empowerment. And we are willing to work with whoever is going to support the women. Because you know the women have been left behind for a long time. I and my national chair were exporters for 3 decades. When we used to do city reforms, you have to come back and account for the money. It was very hard times. But now, women can access money, but they need to be supported. Even Mama Nyanya needs to be supported so that she can have access. If a mama grows manogo at home, how do you add value to it? Yeah, the agro-business, that is the language Maendeleo will like to talk with whoever cares for the women. So Your Excellency, because I know there are other people who will talk, I leave this document, and if there's any information you need, I came with our CEO, she's here with us, and we leave her contact. We can always interact because there may not be enough time to be able to deal with all the issues. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Please present your document to him, our host, and thank you very much. I'd like to recognize Mr. Cheng from the Matatu, the Secretary General Matatu. Just wave from wherever you are. You will have an opportunity to make comment. The Secretary General Matatu Association of Kenya. Mheshimiwa talked about the digital economy. I wonder, and that is the reason why I'm singling him out. I wonder how many of you realize that the largest employer of Boda Boda currently in the city of Nairobi and most other urban areas is actually e-commerce. How are goods transported to you? Who transports goods that are traded on the digital platforms? Isn't it the Boda Boda? So if we grow that area of e-commerce, we are also growing the area and employing a lot of people around, not just the Boda Bodas. Now with that, may I call upon, let me start from my extreme right. My extreme right. Please, your introductions very quickly, because we want, these gentlemen from the press have questions they want to put across. The MPs, introduce yourself. And if you have a comment or question, please do it. I would rather they did it in that order. Let's start there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I hope you'll bear with me where I stay. It's like ice is made from there. That's why I came looking like an Eskimo. Adagala Beatrice, woman MP, Viga County, elected on ANC, Aman National Congress, the peaceful party of peaceful people. That's why you are peacefully seated here under His Excellency Musalia Mudavadi. Well, I may not comment much because I received a message from one of the lecturers here who has been teaching me. And if I talk, and he has taught me things to do with the diplomatic relations, he may remove some of my marks. I want to say thank you for this time and this particular topic that we are discussing. The speakers have taken us through the best blueprint manifesto for His Excellency Musalia Mudavadi, and I'm very sure we have to work on it, and it's the best way for this country. I've seen it as covering everywhere, the women, the children, PWDs, the pastoralists. It's an all-inclusive manifesto. So I want to say thank you for the organizers, the people who have added the value, the meat to the bone until where it has reached. And I know together we shall achieve. Kenya needs to be a growing economy. Kenya needs to have, the Kenyans want to have money in the pockets. Unlike the way all pockets are torn. So this is the best way to go. Thank you very much, and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa Beatrice Adagala. Please, the next gentleman. I know you are my friend, and you are usually very brief.
Yeah. Thank you very much, our host, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, everybody present, Secretariat. I say Jambo. My name is Ernest Kagesi. I'm the MP of Vihiga County. Please differentiate me from her. I'm the MP of the constituency. She is the MP of the county. I'm glad to be here. I'm happy to be here. I must admit, when I entered, and the first group I saw was this retinue of professors. It's the first group I met. And my first comment was, oh, am I going to be treated to some theoretical missions, visions, all that stuff? That's what came to my mind. But I'm glad. I think that's my first takeaway, that what we've been discussing here is actually things which are practicable, which can happen. I think the host was very clear what we can do together by just sitting together and having it done. So I thank you all for not giving me some theoretical stuff, but more practical. And it can't be more practical than what I'm just about to say as an example, that in Parliament I am a member of the Committee of Defense and Foreign Relations. All this we've been talking here about missions abroad, this is what we've been doing for the last 2 years. And as members of the press, next week we are passing the Foreign Service Bill. And this bill is actually just looking into the issues that we've been talking. I think Kenya now requires economic diplomacy rather than most of these things. And you will be seeing it next week in Parliament when we pass the bill. Thank you all. I was happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kagesi, for the quick and short intro.
Thank you, Your Excellency, colleagues, members of the National Assembly, and everybody present. Good afternoon. Apart from presenting to you a presidential candidate who was economical prowess, who is tested, he's told us that his main agenda is to reorganize the debt portfolio of this country, to grow the economy, to create an enabling business environment. We also present to you a man who will unite this country. We cannot achieve all this that we are saying here tonight, this afternoon, if we are disunited. Two, and the last one, is a man who is dependable, a man who is honest. Kenya needs a honest leader who will tell them exactly what the position is. My name is Honorable Christopher Seka, Member of Parliament, Wisero Constituency, Kakamega County. God bless you.
Thank you very much. That's very quick. Let's move that way, because we don't want to reach a point of diminishing returns. And our most famous guests, the media, have not asked the questions they need to ask.
Thank you. My name is Senator Cleophas Malala, Senator for Kakamega. And today I must admit with all honesty that this has been a very valuable session. And it is very important as part of the political class for us to internalize and conceptualize whatever has been presented to us today, so that when we shall be disseminating this information to the public, we do not distort the vision that our vision carrier has. But I want to say here today, without fear of contradiction and with firm conviction and with a lot of certainty, party leader, that all what has been presented here today will be an exercise in futility if you will not be on the presidential ballot paper.
There has been wide speculation that our party leader will be supporting somebody else come 2022. We want to affirm here, as a Mani National Congress, we gave him the mandate to go and represent us as a presidential candidate, and not a campaign manager, and not a deputy president to anybody, and not a prime minister, but a presidential candidate. And we have not renounced that position. And I want to believe that my party leader will be on the presidential candidate. There has been wide speculation that he will be ceding his ground and be supporting somebody else. We want to say that that is propaganda, and that is untrue. As ANC, we are still on the same position that we are supporting Musalia Mudavadi as our presidential candidate. So our party leader and as our captain, we want to encourage you, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, kindly soldier on, do not relent, keep your eyes on the ball, do not blink, stick to your vision, because I want to believe that your dream will soon be actualized and you will be the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. Thank you, may God bless you.
Thank you very much. Trust Cleo to throw in a political spin in an economic forum. Anybody else? I thought I saw many other MPs. Okay, they left, yeah, because, by the way, I must thank members of parliament, because this is their day when they go to the constituencies, and being here is whatever. May I recognize the former MP for Shinyalu, and Samula, please just wave there, you will have your comments. There was the former Minister, Amkoa, Professor Amkoa Nangu, I think I saw him somewhere. We duly recognize you. This is the time for the Q&A. I will not apportion anybody, just put up your hand, and I will be with you, and Q&A. We will take not more than 15 minutes on this. Who is first to go? Yes, please bring the microphone there.
Good afternoon.
Please say your name and the media you come from, if you're coming from the media or whatever organization, and then ask the question.
My name is Caroline Jenga from KBC TV. I have looked at the manifesto, and clearly it has captured most of the economic growth challenges. But I hope it is not all big talks. Because as we look at the previous, or even the current regime, we have seen that most of these agendas are maybe impractical, and they're not implemented. So I would like to know how practical is this manifesto, because yes, we are talking about job creation, wealth creation. How many jobs do you plan to create? Wealth, which sectors are you looking at, and others? Also, something else on the, I would like to ask is, will Honorable Musalia Mudavadi continue with President Uhuru's manifesto blueprint, and economic blueprint of Big Four agenda?
Thank you very much. That question is just a reminder to our panelists. How practical are our suggested or promised interventions in the economy? How many jobs do we intend to create? In which sectors are we going to create those jobs? Somebody else? Yes.
My name is Brenda Kirubo from KTN News Standard Group. I just want to know, still on gender and diversity, other than speaking about having a very diversified panel of experts, I haven't really seen outright in terms of finding solutions when it comes to gender parity, and at the same time incorporating people with disabilities. I think when it comes to COVID-19, so many women have lost their jobs. There should be a plan in terms of economic revival in that sector. So how do you plan to encourage more women to take up jobs? And at the same time, in the corporate sector, how will we ensure that we have more women in boardrooms and in decision-making businesses. That's quite crucial in terms of policy formulation.
Thank you very much, Brenda. The issue of gender, diversity, and economic inclusivity as it affects women and people living with disabilities is her question. I hope our experts are taking. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Clive Ayuko. I'm a blogger based here in Nairobi. And my question is...
Please, don't talk into them.
Okay.
We couldn't hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said, I'm Clive Ayuko, and I'm a blogger based here in Nairobi. My question is actually to Mr. Honorable Musalia Mudavadi and the sociologist, Dr. Msoso, Professor Msoso, sorry. My question is, why do voters vote for corrupt leaders? Because Honorable Mudavadi would be vying for the presidency, but then again, if the MPs there are corrupt leaders, they would surely derail his manifesto and what he plans to achieve for Kenya. And question number 2, on agriculture. You've actually spoken about this agriculture thing for a very long time. But then again, we have these external threats. For instance, the potato industry employs around 3.5 million Kenyans. But that now is under threat since the EU has actually put down policies like the policies for regulation of pesticides. And most of these pesticides actually are used to actually make our food grow properly. So in terms of actually dealing with these external factors that perhaps impede on development on agriculture, what are you likely to do, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, to actually make this food agriculture and food security actually a reality? Thank you.
Ayuko has asked a question to be shared between Honorable Musalia and Professor Musoso. One question is political. Why do voters vote for corrupt leaders? The other one is about agriculture, the external, how do we surmount external threats? And he has given the idea of the EU now putting in some kind of restrictions to agricultural produce from Africa, I suppose.
I'm Leonard Onyango from Taifa Leo Nation Media Group. Hii manifesto ni nzuri sana, lakini wakati nimekuwa nikiangalia hapa sasa ninashangaa. Hatutaweza kupata kitu ambacho kimelaka kwa hiyo manifesto ni climate change. You have no plan how to deal with climate change. Hatuwezi kupata food security without addressing climate change. Pesa mfukoni, sijui unemployment, kusaidia wachungaji na kumaliza conflicts. Hatuta deal na hizo vitu bila kudeal na climate change. Climate Change Act imeweka kazi ya climate ndani ya ofisi ya rais, lakini sijaona chochote. Vile vile kwa agriculture, mimi nadhani hatuhitaji kitu mpya. Tuko na kitu kinaitwa Kenya Smart Agriculture Strategy 2017-2026. Nafikiri ukiahidi tu kuimplement hiyo basi kila kitu itakuwa sawa. Alafu
bwana, usichukue nafasi ya kila mtu.
80% of Kenyan land is unproductive. Sasa kama wewe rais,
can you repeat that one again?
80%
of
Kenyan land is unproductive. Yani,
unproductive.
80% of Kenyans depend on 16% of land only. So kama rais, can you expand productive land iwe at least 30%?
Thank you very much.
And what is the strategy?
Thank you very much. Leonard says he was looking forward to hearing about how we are going to tackle climatic change for purposes of the economy, right? Number two, you don't need to invent the wheel. You can just implement the current Kenya Smart Agriculture policy paper, whatever. And then lastly, he claims that 80% of our land is unproductive. That is why I asked you that question. I think we have the experts here, they will deal with that question. Yes? Yes, sir. I'm coming this way.
I'm Stanley. I'm Stanley Wabomba. I work for KBC, and I'm interested in getting more details about the National Credit Guarantee Scheme for manufacturers. I'm interested in knowing how much is the kitty, who qualifies for this kitty. Those who qualify, they pay at what rate? The other thing is about the agriculture, and it's related to Malabo declaration. So, looking at our budget today of around 3 trillion shillings, how are you going to distribute this to this 300 billion shillings? Is it through counties or through the national government? And then lastly, it's about debt management. You talked about setting up a debt regulatory institution and restructuring debt portfolio. How different is it from the existing public debt management office at the National Treasury?
Thank you very much. Stanley wants to know details about the National Credit Guarantee Scheme. What is it, how much it is, what it's doing. Number two, how have we tackled the issue of the Malabo Declaration in terms of agriculture? I think I know somewhere where it is tackled. And then the issue of how do we, how different is our suggested debt management authority from the current, what did you say it was called at the Treasury? Public Debt Management Office at the Treasury. How different is that? I think I remember I saw Honorable Sako Bunyasi, the author of the bill here, on the National Debt Management Authority. I don't know if they're still here, but our experts will deal with it because they are aware of that. I'm coming this way. Let me take you, and then you, and then you, and then we get answers. And then we can come back to the others.
Willie Ronald is my name. I work for KBC Digital. My first question is in regards to debt. Statutory debt ceiling has been set at 9 trillion. Amani National Congress wants to come in and implement its manifesto. Are you likely going to review this? Because you realize we have a revenue shortfall as well as, deficit. How is ANC, and in particular Your Excellency, going to address this? Two is on tax cuts. Multilateral lenders, this is not what they want to hear, especially with the support they are giving when it comes to economic recovery. What particular areas are you looking at when it comes to taxes? Because we saw what tax incentives did to the public, that is pay and VAT. Are you likely going to reverse this or redistribute taxes? Because Your Excellency has mentioned that he's not going to introduce new taxes. And 2 and 3 is, what is your strategy in terms of boosting exports? Because the ratio between exports and imports is currently skewed. And then we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. What should SMEs look for in your government? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Willie. Questions to our hosts. The debt cap is now at 9 trillion. How will you review that debt cap? Number 2, you have actually said here that you are not going to increase taxes. And Willie wants to know, our lenders, will not listen to you if you talk about tax cuts. So how are you going to maneuver around that issue of taxation? Then the question of boosting our exports. What is the strategy in the face of SEFT, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? Yes, Madam.
My name is Meresia Alo. I'm the East Africa correspondent for Africa Leadership Magazine. Now, my question will be directed to Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. I'd love to know how he's going to engage regional countries in the push for economic revival in the East African communities. And then my second question is, how is he going to tie his economic agenda to the recently ratified intra-Africa trade?
Those are very clear ones. How are you going to engage the East African community for economic revival, and then how do you integrate the new inter-Africa trade? Yes?
Thank you. I'm Victor Madala from the Star newspaper. I have two questions. One is about the ANC leader talked about dealing with the tax burden that is ailing this country. I just want to know how he's going to balance between revenue generation for the budgetary support and making sure that he's easing the cost of doing business and living for the people. And then the second question will be around, he once was a finance minister in this country. What are some of the economic policies?
Sorry, he wants to boost?
He wants
to
was
boost?
He was once a finance minister in this country.
Uh-huh.
I want to know maybe what are some of the economic policies he would want to borrow from the past regime into his government. Thanks.
Okay, that is very clear there. How are you going to balance between budget support and easing the cost of doing business, which will essentially mean you need to tackle the issue of taxation, punitive taxation to business concerns? Second question is, what economic policies can you borrow from the past that will be useful today in view of the fact that you are the finance minister? The last question on this round, and then, yes, madam.
Okay, my name is Max Miller, journalist. I have questions on the embrace sustainability of green, circular, and blue economy. Kenya has an abundance of untapped maritime resources along its coast. Okay, it's clear that the ocean economy is a smart investment that can deliver social, economic, and environmental benefit to our people. My question comes, what are the new programs that the manifesto that you're going to unveil that enhances to support Kenyan coast and the blue economy at large? Thank you so much.
Maximila is asking for practical promises that you make in the economic agenda on how you are going to exploit the blue and green economy for the benefit of the people. This is to you experts. Let's get the responses. I'll come to you. I'll come in the second round. Least they forget the questions and also the answers they wanted to give. I will not say who should take which question. If you are kind enough to answer a question for our host, which was asked directly, please do. But let me start here. Or can I say, put up your hand if you are in terms of responses? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I will respond to two questions. One, not in the, necessarily in the order. Hello. Yeah, thank you. I'll respond to two questions, not necessarily in the order they came. Okay, one question was, which I also don't think it was a question, it was a comment, that 80% of Kenya's land is unproductive. Let me say this, I think having read through the manifesto, the economic agenda, I think that is, I would call it a fallacy. A fallacy that was planted in 1965 in the session of paper number 10, which actually implied that government investment will be directed to areas of high economic potential, meaning that the ASAL areas, arid and semi-arid lands, which actually constitute about 80% of the Kenyan landmass, were assumed to be unproductive. I think what I saw in this manifesto, and what I think is real, the reality, is that today we cannot talk of any land in Kenya as being unproductive. Every land is productive. What is only required is investment in the resources in that area. Yeah, so the other question was on why do voters vote for corrupt leaders? Well, that's a difficult question, but the point is, I want to believe with the proper civic education, if we carefully, as in our individual capacities, as members of families, as members of our other groups, professional groups, etc., if we clearly educated our people, our voters, that it is not that one who gives you 100 shillings today and tells you, vote for me, that is a mark of good leadership. I think, to me, the way forward is let us engage with our people, with our voters. Let them be able to have the ability to decipher from among the candidates one who is progressive against that who is retrogressive. Money does not make one a good leader, but a good leader is that one who has the ideas, yeah, that will help everybody prosper. So I think the point is, of course, the corrupt leaders also are very good at deceiving voters, misguiding voters, harping on decadent ideas, for example, ethnicity, that vote for me because I'm a member of your ethnic group, I'm a member of this family, I'm a member of this clan. To me, that is no longer relevant. I think we need to engage our people, our voters, with the civic education, let them be informed. And I think for me, if we were to do that, then the issue of voting for the corrupt will be a thing of the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Thank you. Why do we vote for corrupt leaders? Because every politician maximizes a political support function that balances between the voter and the funder of the election, and has to make a choice as to whether the voters are listening without that leader having money, or the voters are going to earn money, then he has to incline on the side of the funder. So that is how we vote. There is something called the iron law of oligarchy. If you read, you'll understand why the voter plays a very small role in the elections, because they have allowed the politician to have to lean more on the side of the funder in his or her attempt to maximize the political support function. There are two issues around agriculture that I want to respond to. We have agriculture contributing 34% of our GDP, and that is true. But look at this year's budget. Agriculture is allocated 3% of our budget. 56% of all the stalled government projects are in agriculture sector. That is how agriculture fails to play the role it is supposed to play. And that is what we have seen in this manifesto, as we had a chance to go through with my colleagues here. There is a promise to try and reverse that. And that, I think, is a good thing. It will make agriculture play its rightful role. It is not true that there is a part of Kenya that is not productive. If you look at Kenya, Kenya is a net beef importer. We actually import beef, right? And we import livestock from Ethiopia and Somalia. The parts from which these cattle come from are more arid than our northern Kenya. So that should tell us something. We have only not invested in the right places. If we do invest, there is no part of Kenya that is non-productive. If there was, Kenya would cede it to other people. But I'm sure you heard the president the other day speaking in Coast saying Kenya will not cede an inch of its soil because there's no inch that is useless. I think that needs to be clear, and I think that as I have looked at this manifesto and the proposals for the ASALs, I think that that has been taken into account. The issue of tax cuts and the multilateral lenders, it is true. What multilateral lenders are doing at the moment to insist that we don't lower our tax rates is exactly what a bank would do if you have borrowed from them to run a business and they're looking at your cash flows and your cash flows are not good. And they think that you may end up defaulting, right? They'll put more stringent conditions on you because of the risk of default. For once you start to show that you are generating revenues and you are repaying your loans on time, the bank will not insist on micromanaging you. Multilateral lenders do the same thing with governments. When a government is on the brink of defaulting on its loan obligations, they put conditions on you. They can even tell you that you are not going to hire people. And we had this in the 90s when the government was told you cannot hire people into the civil service because you are on the brink of defaulting on your debt obligations. Once those are sorted out, which is what I saw in this manifesto is promising to revive sectors so that we can have more revenues, there will be no multilateral lender telling us that you cannot lower your tax rates and that you cannot actually waive some of the taxes. There is something we call in economics the paradox of thrift. When you are thinking that you are raising more money by imposing these heavy taxations, you actually end up raising, in terms of the absolute figures, lowering the amount that you net. Because you kill some of the sectors and the total revenue that is generated in the economy declines, and therefore, however high the tax rate, the net tax revenues decline. One final thing I want to talk about is the credit guarantee scheme. I have to say honestly that at the moment, we think it will not be right to start to, or not in the interest of the party leader, to start to say the details of each of the proposals that are in the manifesto until such a time that that manifesto is made public. Because I think you have heard him complain about the possibilities of plagiarism here and there. And so there are some detailed pieces of information that we have seen in the manifesto, but which I have to tell you, we signed non-disclosure agreements, and my colleagues here signed. We won't be at liberty at this moment to make them public, for the reason that the manifesto itself is not out yet. But you should know that there's a plan on that to make sure that the people who are going to be needing this credit are actually supported to be able to play their role in the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Dr. Dami.
Thank you very much. I'll respond to 3 questions. One is on regulations. One is on regulations. And the second one is on issues of climate change. And the third one is on job creation. It is very true that regulations are becoming stringent, especially when we look at our exports in the horticulture, that is vegetables and fruits. And this is to do with the maximum residue levels. Now, the Europeans are protecting themselves, and it is important that they look at quality and safety of the global gap, which relates to food quality and safety, also have application for our own health and our own safety. So in our manifesto, we are articulating the issue that over-regulation is as equally as bad as the impact of safety issues, whether it comes to potatoes or vegetables or fruits. So balancing the cost of regulation and the effect of regulation is quite critical. And we are looking at that and trying to see how can we best balance. But in regards to potato, which he referred in his question, I think the issue is that currently in Kenya, we are using local varieties, which reduces the yields, and we are only using 5% of improved seed. And if we want to increase productivity, increase income, and also jobs for everybody, including the youth, we must have a system that is locally acceptable, but also meeting standards. First of all, internally, and then second, to our neighbors and also abroad. I also think that I referred earlier, and I think it's a vision of the party leader, the whole idea of connectivity. I don't see the reason why mangoes grown in, let's say, Machakos or Kitui cannot be linked to dairy production in Central so that we produce yogurt. I tend to think that if we did interlinkages between sectors, between geographies, and between people, we can even be able to satisfy our domestic need for potatoes, for rice, for mangoes, and others. So I think in our the manifesto, PL's manifesto, we are advocating for working together and having interdependency, or what we call connectivity. And this will also create more jobs. On the second question of jobs, agriculture is a big opportunity or job creator. But that is not going to come from business as usual of the traditional production. As I said earlier, Ron, that we need to link production to value addition, to processing, to services, to markets, to ICT. And the young people especially, they have opportunity to provide services, even tractor hire services, spraying services, aggregation, sorting and grading, transport, and providing logistics. And our moderator just mentioned that a short while ago, the e-commerce. And I think if we combine all these as linking agriculture to industry to ICT, this is where the jobs are going to come from. Lastly, on the issue of climate change, it is very true, and we have addressed that also in our document. And we are going to release sector by sector, category by category, because 20 minutes or 25 minutes of presentation, you could not cover all the sections that are there. So we prioritize. But climate change is a very big issue that we are considering, and we are very sensitive to it. There are two elements of climate change. One is mitigation, which is doing carbon gases and all that, which requires heavy investment. But we have also climate adaptation, which requires awareness creation among our farmers, and also using varieties, local varieties, which had been discarded before, like millet, sorghum, groundnuts, that are more energy and resource saving, and they are also considered healthy and highly nutritive. So we have put all those into consideration, and as the questioner said, sometimes we have policies, but implementation is weak. And I think the whole issue of economic governance is to look at the challenges and opportunities and the resources that we can be able to mobilize to make implementation more effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dame. Jackie, you want to pick up something?
I think I'll just touch very slightly a small point that was raised to do with job creation. On the manifesto, we saw a statement whereby the party leader has pledged he will not borrow locally. Now, what's the impact of not borrowing locally? I'll take you back to when retired President Kibaki was running the country. As a policy, he didn't borrow locally. And the multiplier effect on that, if you recall, the banks were literally hawking their products. And it was a good day for SMEs and a good day for young people eager to start jobs. So banks had no alternative but to literally take their money out there, reach out to you. I recall at some places they simply wanted to know, do you have an ID card? And once you fill in some forms, then you could always get some credit. Today, we know that the opposite applies. It's extremely difficult to get any form of credit. So the party leader has pledged that he won't borrow locally. And one cannot discount the multiplier effect of that very short statement. It is extremely powerful, and we saw the effects of it during retired President Kibaki's time. Thank you.
Yeah, please don't feel uncomfortable that they are not answering you directly, because when you have asked 4 questions about unemployment, I think the experts have been able to tie them up. There was one question, which was the first one, about how many jobs and in which sector and we are going to create. Perchance, read the Jubilee Manifesto. Read the Jubilee Manifesto. They threw figures all over the place on everything. Okay, they put caps. We are going to do, I don't know how many kilometers of road. We are going to create 5,000 jobs. Was it annually or was it biannually? So everything, figures were thrown around. But a major question that now you can ask in retrospect, if you go back to the Jubilee Manifesto, is how the hell were they going to achieve those figures? The party, the host here, Honorable Mudavadi, I think when he stood here, he told you he's not going into things that are not practical and pragmatic. He will deal with the reality as it comes and consult. So it might be difficult for that answer to come from here now to tell you a lie that after 2022 we'll create 10,000 jobs in agriculture, whatever. We can give estimations in terms of over a period of time, but we should not make a mistake of having absolute figures on clearly things that you know will not provide that. Some questions that have not been touched, I think, were reserved for the party leader, and he'll have the last take after this final round of the Q&A. There were hands behind there. May I take that? Some hands there. About 3. Or they have left. There's a gentleman there. Can that gentleman have access to a microphone? The gentleman next to the window there.
Naam, kwa majina naitwa Emmanuel Kilong kutoka Sasa Radio na TV Magharibi. Na swali langu la kwanza ningependa kuuliza mheshimiwa iwapo atafanikiwa kuchukua hatamu za uongozi na wakati taifa litakuwa na deni kubwa sana, atafanyaje kulipia haya madeni ndio kusishuhudiwe hali kama ile ambayo tulishuhudia hapo awali kati ya taifa na IMF. Then swali la pili ni kuhusiana na kilimo, ambapo tunaona kwamba viwanda katika mkoa wa Magharibi vingi vimekwama, na wakulima kutoka katika eneo hilo maisha yao yamekuwa magumu kiasi. Tunaona wengi wao wamekushindwa vile wanaweza kuwapeleka watoto wao shuleni. Je, yeye akichukua hatamu za uongozi, wapo atachaguliwa kuwa rais, atafanyaje ndipo taifa liwe na viwanda ambavyo vitasaidia katika kuinua kiwango cha uchumi wa taifa? Na vile vile kuhusiana na kilimo cha zao la kahawa, tunaona kwamba bei ya kuuza zao hili katika taifa hili ni tofauti sana. Tukiangalia katika mkoa wa Central, tunaona kilo moja ya kahawa inauzwa kwa shilingi 136, lakini mkoa wa Magharibi tunaona kwamba kilo moja ya kahawa inauzwa kwa shilingi 25 na 40. Je, yeye akichukua hatamu za uongozi wapo atafanikiwa, atafanyaje ndipo tukue na usawa wa bei? Na swali la mwisho ni kuhusiana na masoko ya humu nchini. Wakati bidhaa zinakizwa kutoka katika mataifa ya nje na humu nchini, tunaona kwamba kuna madalali ama brokers wanafanya bei hii inakuwa ngumu. Je, yeye atafanyaje ndipo tukawe na usawa wakati wanaagiza vitu katika masoko ya nje ama wanaagiza vitu katika humu nchini, wa Kenya na wanunuzi wa mataifa pia wakaweza kunufaika kutokana na hilo? Asante.
Asante sana. Ulisema jina lako ni nani?
Emmanuel Kilongi.
Emmanuel?
Ya, Emmanuel Kilongi kutoka TV Magharibi na Sasa Radio.
Okay. Emmanuel ameuliza kuna mabrokers wengi sana katika the import export business. What will you do to deal with them? Ameuliza kwamba there is price differentiation between farmers in, was it Central Kenya? And the payments that go to farmers in Western region. Why and what will you do to remove that differentiation? I think the agriculturist here should handle this matter in terms of how do we arrive at pricing. Even tea has the same issue. They don't get the same prices for the same kilo. So I don't think the PA, the party leader, should handle that. I think the agriculturist should handle that issue, how pricing is done in this agricultural sector. And what will you do to revive industries in Western Kenya? Please note that industries have not, it is not only Western Kenya. Western Kenya is a recent victim. The whole of this country is full of monuments of industries that have collapsed. So you can take it from the global point of view. You will be taking over the country, Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi, when the debt is so high. How will you manage? Those are 4 questions, whatever. If there is nobody else, I think, okay. Should this one be the last? Yeah, because we are running also. Is that journalist or journalist? Yeah, not journalist. allow us to take these four. Who is this? Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sheila Wathi from ISFAC. So as we were going through the presentation, I noticed that there's nothing that has been mentioned on a tax policy, a national tax policy, which I think is something that we've been lacking. So we find that every year that there is a complete change in the tax regime, which of course can deter like the foreign direct investments and even the small businesses that are here. One year they could be flourishing, the next year, they're falling. So I just wanted to know if that's in the plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm definitely sure this is tackled, but the experts will explain. I start there. Sure.
My name is Margaret Njogon. I work for Capital FM. I would like to know, every administration comes in and promises jobs for the youth. So I want to know how the Musalia Mudavadi intends to probably create jobs for the youth and probably give us a clear roadmap on how he's going to realistically do that, because everyone says they're going to create jobs, but this dream sort of is never achieved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Margaret Njuguna. She wants to know whether you're going to be different from the rest who have been promising youth jobs. Can you provide a realistic roadmap for that particular aspect? Yes?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alfred Kombudo. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, interested in development matters. Just two very, very quick comments because of time. And I think my first comment is directed to the media. We are getting into election season now, and much as people present manifestos, I think the first question you should ask yourself is, where are we now, and how did we get to where we are right now? That's the first question I believe that you should always ask. What was promised in 2013, what was promised in 2017, and where are we at now? And a manifesto is not just an academic document, it is a product of the person proposing it and the contents of that manifesto. So we also, as voters, want to look forward to a time when we are also interrogating the history and the contribution or lack of it that the various candidates have had to the economic situation we are facing now. That's an essential part of discussing a manifesto. And finally, when we are trying to evaluate where we are at right now, let us look at things from the outcome level, not output level. So at an outcome level, why is it that Ethiopia gets more foreign direct investment than Kenya does right now by over $1.5 billion a year? Why is it, for example, that from 2013, Tanzania makes more money from tourism than Kenya does right now? Why is it that our exports are flat over the last 10 years? Why is it, for those who love football, why is Messi wearing a shirt that reads "Visit Rwanda" at the back and not "Visit Kenya"? Why is it that Rwanda is building Busegera Airport with Emirates that has a capacity of 14 million passengers a year, more than double what JKIA has, with no specific plan for us to retain our position as the regional hub for transport? And that affects our tourism. Why are we not asking those kind of questions? Because if we look at those kind of questions, then we'll be able to know where we are at now and who is the best person to deliver us to where we need to go. And finally, we're talking about things like conference tourism. Why is it, for example, that in Kigali now, they have Kigali Convention Center with a capacity of 5,000 people, with hotels and all those kind of facilities in there? Whatever happened to KICC? And where are international conferences going to nowadays? Those are the kind of questions that I really want us to focus on and see who are the best candidates to resolve that particular problem. I've seen a number of things coming up in this manifesto that I like, to do with reforming the capacity of public institutions to be able to deliver these kind of things. But unless you keep on asking these questions to every single presidential candidate that you meet, then we might end up with a situation whereby we have the wrong president in office next year. And I'd like to thank the party for articulating its vision, and the party leader. We wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it deserves that. Why do I have an inkling that Kombudo, is it? That Kombudo has read this economic agenda of Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi. Because the examples you are highlighting are the questions that we seek to answer in the area of tourism, in the area of investment, foreign direct investment, etc., etc. But it's good that we seem to concur on those issues. But he has asked us of the media given us a very important advice. Ask why we are where we are. After that answer is coming or not forthcoming, ask the next question. Where do we go from here? And then finally ask how. So if you read a manifesto, I am offering that free guideline. Read it in that way. Read it in that way. Finally, let's get this lady here.
Thank you so much, moderator. Thank you, His Excellency, the party leader ANC, for articulating your manifesto to us. My name is Isabella Ndolo. I'm the CEO of Maendeleo ya Wanawake. We know economic performance depends on people and their values. My question is, what plan do you have in place to inculcate values as an enabler to implementing this manifesto? Because we know without values, it's just a good document, a good paper that will go to our shelves. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Isabella, for raising that issue. It goes to the question of integrity. It goes to the question of the value called integrity. It goes to the question, I saw the slide there, talking about implementing chapter 6 of our constitution, which our MPs have refused completely to legislate on and whatever. It goes to the question of our work ethic. It goes to the question of our work ethic. What is the satisfaction we get from the jobs we do? Is it the money at the end of the month, or the fact that you fulfilled a task that is going to help another person? Let me take this opportunity now to welcome the host to make some few comments on areas that were directed at him, and then we will close this session for today. Thank you. Please welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll try and be brief because some of them have been touched. There's the issue of taxation, how it impacts on the budgetary commitments, and the overall tax policy issues raised by Sheila. First of all, let me just say that the gentleman from KBC who talked about what does it mean when you have made commitments with the international partners on the tax issue. Will you be in trouble with them? Naturally, yes. You will be in trouble if you start defaulting. But you will remember one of the remarks I made here is that there is need for us to rationalize our expenditure, our public expenditure. There is need for us to make sure that we cut our cloth to fit our size. Why are we having too many tax obligations? We are having too many tax obligations because too many commitments were made by those in office, yet they had not looked appropriately on how they were going to fund those programs. So they were left with two scenarios: continue borrowing heavily, or, and at the same time, continue raising taxes. So if we were to be talking to our international partners, let us be realistic on the programs that we are putting on the table. That is very, very important. Secondly, we talked about rationalizing expenditure. Security is important in our country, and for any country for that matter. But let us remember that in most cases, donors do not fund security-related expenditure. That is an expenditure that must remain the preserve of the governments themselves through their taxpayers, by and large. So one of the things that we will have to look at as a country is that how do you balance between some of those expenditures and expenditures that will have a very serious social impact in terms of transformation of the lives of the people. This is an area that will have to be looked at very, very carefully. And it does not, I would like to encourage you to also have a look at the profile of the estimates that have been presented to Parliament and see how much has been allocated to some of these sectors or some of these areas. And you will notice that there's been some very serious growth of expenditure in certain areas, and that may have impacted on our ability to deliver in other areas. So rationalization becomes critical. The issue of the tax policy, I really want to echo what Sheila has said, because compliance on tax comes when people feel that there's balance, there's been adequate conversation around it, and then they also see that the resources raised from our taxes are doing the right thing. When they see that, they'll feel better, and there'll be better compliance at the end of the day. We also, the tax policy will also depend on the kind of expenditure programs that we want to put in place. So if we put in place very unrealistic expenditure programs, we are going to have a very inconsistent tax policy attached to it, because there will be pressure to finance some of those issues. And some may not be issues that donor or international partners have an interest in. So if they don't have an interest, they'll not support you in some of the sectors. So we need to have a very clear tax policy, and I support that, which is well thought out, consulted, agreed, and even anchored appropriately through parliamentary processes, so that you do not have what you would call when you have this word, what is this word, where you can just change ad hoc or tax arrangements at any time. You need to have a clear, consistent, predictable direction on how you're going to handle your taxes, and that will come out with a clear policy. The issue of jobs for the youth, I want to maintain that the biggest generator of jobs is going to be the private sector. That is very important. And this was raised by somebody in Capital FM, I think Maggie. We must create the right environment for the private sector to generate those jobs. Are we giving the private sector a clear framework that they can do their business in and thrive? Are we trying to compete with the private sector in some of the areas? Government should not be doing business per se, but we have seen in scenarios that government is literally sometimes trying to compete with its own citizens in the context of the private sector. We have to ask questions like, what do we do to make the manufacturer reduce his electricity bill from 40% of the cost of production to 20%? Because if we can achieve that, then that manufacturer will employ more people. More young people will be employed. But if we continue loading him with high costs when it comes to the production side of his equation, we will not create enough jobs. So these are the areas that if we focus appropriately, I'm sure we can make a change. There was the issue of the cost of farm produce. I may not answer all of it fully, but I'll just give an example of something I came across. If you're buying cement here in Nairobi, it costs you about 570 shillings for the bag of cement. If you go to Eldoret, it will cost you maybe about 780. If you go to Mandera, the same bag of cement will cost you 1,250. Now, these are basically realistic figures that I'm presenting to you. Now, when you look at that, inbuilt in some of these take-away packages for farmers is also the cost of transportation, which chips into this. So in our solutions, we must also address some of those issues to be able to allow the farmer to benefit more. Remember, when it comes to fuel, fuel is cheaper in Nairobi and the environment than the fuel you'll buy in Bungoma and Kisumu. So if you are a tea farmer in those distances, you must ask yourself a few questions. When you are preparing your land and you're looking at it, what is the cost of your inputs vis-a-vis some of these challenges? So these things come back to feed in the ultimate cost or price that you get. But nevertheless, it becomes an issue, and we have said that we need to also address the cost side. In our manifesto, we are saying let's try and look at the cost side in production to see how we can mitigate on some of the issues that I am pointing out. I'll tell you a joke. Somebody said about the airports and was it Kambundo, I think? Kumbudo. I remember there was an American ambassador here some time back, and one of the issues that was on the table was the issue of privatization. And at that time, people were shocked that sometimes certain assets can also be privatized. And at that time, there was the debate on whether you can privatize Jomo Kenyatta Airport, or you can even privatize some of the terminals. And the argument was between security and privatization. But one of the jokes she put across was that at the end of the day, even if you privatize an asset of that nature, there's no way even that private operator would be able to carry Jomo Kenyatta Airport and go with it to the United States. It will always remain here physically as an asset. It cannot be taken away. So some of the debates that we talk about, and when we look at efficiency levels, we will have to think out of the box. Is there anything wrong through a PPP, private-public partnership, for instance, that can stop us if the laws are right and we say we want to have a private port developed somewhere? It can be done. If you wanted to say that let us have Kakamega airstrip or Kitale managed by a private operator, and you are able to negotiate through a competitive process a partnership where you have the Dubai or Emirates coming to say we shall put a terminal in Kakamega, and be able to have flights or cargo planes, because it's now dedicated to them, to fly there and enhance your business operations. These are issues that can be done. If you travel around the world, you will find that British Airways is building their own terminals. I remember here, even Kenya Airways, they were requesting, and personally I saw no reason to it, they were requesting where they can have their own terminal built by Kenya Airways, and it took a very long time for people to conceptualize that Kenya Airways was not going to take away the airport. They are your national carrier. They want to put a terminal dedicated to themselves, and that becomes a security issue. So there are some issues. If we go forward, we can find many ways of creating jobs, creating new synergies, provided we are putting the right people in office. The issue of corrupt leaders, all I can say is that we once taught in our earlier days in school that all that glitters is not gold. That is all I can tell you on that one. All that glitters is not gold. If we can conceptualize that, we shall know that leadership is not about bling bling. Tunaelewana kabisa? Haya. There was the Debt Management Authority. There's a difference between the Debt Management Authority that we are conceptualizing as ANC, and it's a bill that has gone through the first reading in Parliament, than the debt, in comparison to the Debt Management Office. We want to create a more independent, more professional, and better resourced debt management unit in the country. And we are not inventing the wheel here. Sweden has such a mechanism. Ireland has such a mechanism. And they have done very well in terms of how they have managed their public debt. The current management office is basically an appendage of the Treasury. for your information. And even when it was created through the Management, Public Finance Management Act, it took almost a year to establish that. It's very thinly staffed. So we want a mechanism that will provide better transparency in assessing risk, looking at the commitments the country is going into. What are the terms of that commitment? Has it complied with all the parliamentary procedure? Not a situation where debt is committed and Parliament is made to rubber stamp later. Because that is what has been happening. So when you talk of the ceiling of 9 trillion, true, over the years, this ceiling will grow. Countries will continue to borrow. We will borrow, even in the future. But are we doing the due diligence and the necessary risk and offering the transparency that is required as we make those commitments? Because, as I said, they feed. So that is the distinction that is there. Regional trade, inter-Africa trade, this is very important. We must break down the barriers that inhibit trade in the region and within the African continent. We must work towards that. We must, because through that we'll also eliminate conflict in our regions. When people can have access to other things, they'll be better citizens of the continent, of the region, and of their own countries. So we need to work on that. And it is also one of the areas to grow our exports. We were told here that our exports have generally flattened. They have not been growing as they should be growing, which is true. The data that is available, even from government statistics, shows that there has been some kind of slowdown on our exports exploited. We have to look at what synergies can be put together in some of these areas. So I agree. The Taifa Leo gentleman, Leonard Onyango, I think issues of climate change were addressed. The issues of whether we have land that is unproductive, I think that has been adequately tackled because land has different uses. So if you say it is unproductive, it's maybe we have not put the right infrastructure in some of those areas. For instance, there's the potential of a new road, I think it's being worked on, to move from Isiolo all the way to Mandera. Parallel to it, I think there's going to be the fiber optic running parallel with that road all the way to Mandera. And you can imagine what potential it will unleash in that area, so that land that has been deemed to be unproductive will turn out to be perhaps the new frontier that we must be looking at. Good access roads, good communication, maybe provide the necessary water that is required there, and the transformation has been made. So let us not categorize land or certain parts of the country as unproductive per se, because that was what was used in the early colonial days to justify lack of expenditure and investment in infrastructure in some of those regions by simply branding them as unproductive. Let us remember Kenya is whole, Kenya is one, and all our 520,000 square kilometers of territory must be treated appropriately. I think somebody asked me another question, whether I will continue with the Big Four agenda initiated by Uhuru. I think what is important is a country is seen as a country that moves on. And policies have to be reviewed, programs have to be reviewed from time to time. But what is important is that at any one time, we must focus on projects and programs that will have a very significant impact on the lives of our people. So if within the Big Four agenda, there are areas that I will be able to say make a lot of sense, yes, you can proceed with those. If there is an area that requires review, then you can have also a review of some of those programs. After all, Kibaki brought in the issue of Vision 2030. We are coming closer to the end of that vision in terms of timelines. We will have to do an audit as to what has been achieved and what has not been achieved. And Kenyans will have to start planning for the next 50 years. After the 2030 duration comes to an end, you must plan for your next 50 years. And in those 50 years, based on the audit that you'll have taken, you may change course or you may enhance some of the issues that are placed there. Finally, I think it was the debt issue, and I repeat that the whole idea of engagements is to make sure that the commitments we enter into are commitments that we can honor. You know, the Japanese are very rigid. If a Japanese cannot pay his debt in the old days, he'll fall on his sword. Because to him, not being able to pay your debt is something that is very dishonorable. And you do not deserve to live. That is where the phrase of falling on the sword basically came from. So what we are saying here, let us, as a Kenyan people, not reach the stage where we borrow the Japanese phrase of falling on our sword. Tulipe madeni yetu na tuhakikishe tunaweza lipa. Kwa hivyo tukiyachukua tupime uwezo wetu. That is the simple message around here. But we will have to renegotiate with our partners in some areas. And this is it. But there's hope. That's why I'm standing here. There's hope. Yeah, and it can be done. Let us not make it look like it's the end of the road. All we are saying is that diagonalize properly, and then let us move. Because there is hope. We can do it. Asante sana. The gender issue, once you see the whole manifesto, we want to be very clear that you cannot talk about transformational issues, you cannot talk about good governance until you address all those issues. So it's a package. It's holistic in the thought process. And even in the development of these programs, it's not just the two ladies they made the reference to. There are also other ladies who have participated in what we are talking about. And for Isabel and Olo, I can tell you the integrity issues will only make sense when there are more ladies in areas of authority. Asante sana.
Protocol is very clear that once the host has spoken, you cannot start speaking after that. May I humbly request we have lunch. I would request that the guests would follow the host to the 12th floor. The media coverage crew, please